That's Dre's tutoring? Hey guys, welcome to another video where today we'll be going over the properties of gases. All you guys are familiar through your elementary school, middle school, maybe not elementary, but middle school, high school, college courses about the different phases of matter, that being liquid, solid, or gas, in some cases plasma. But in today's video, we'll be going over gases. As you guys see here, I do have an equation here. If I blow this up, PV equals nRT, pressure, volume, V, nRT. This is just the thumbnail for the video, guys. We're going to go more in depth into the different laws like Charles' law, Boyle's law, and so on and so forth. We'll be a bit more, we'll be mathematicians. But for right now, let's just get through the concept, and then after that, there will be videos later on discussing this, okay? So, some of the gases that we have that make up our atmosphere are oxygen, nitrogen, argon, CO2, carbon dioxide, and water vapor. As you guys see, nitrogen makes up for 70% of the atmosphere, so it is the most abundant gas in our atmosphere. Some of the states of matter, again, are solid, liquids, and gases. So if we just focus on a solid, we can see that the particles are tightly packed together. So huge characteristics about solids are they're typically packed together. There we go. They're packed together real tight. Liquids are kind of free flowing, not packed too tight, nor are they completely free, right? I would say this is like an intermediate between the two. Now, for the sake of this video, we'll be talking about gases, where you can see they're spread apart. They are far more spread apart. And this will make sense for why this happens when we go into some of the gas behavior. So here's a few key notes that I want to talk about with gases and for you guys to really remember. The key notes are that gases are far apart. So unlike water and solids, you can see that the particles are way further apart. So really take this in, dive in, and really think that gases are spread apart. Another characteristic is there's no definite shape for gases. As you can see, for a solid, if we were to take like an ice cube or something, my art teacher would go nuts because this is absolutely a terrible image. But if we were to take an ice cube, it has a definite shape. Even a liquid within, like a glass of water, it has a definite shape. But when we look at a gas, there is no definite shape, again, because these particles are so far apart and they're shooting across, going crazy. They're very hyper, they're very rapid, okay? Another thing about a gas is we'll completely fill a container. And throughout this video, you'll hear me say in a container, in a container, in a container. Okay, and I know that a lot of you guys are used to the schematics in your notebooks or your college textbooks, where you'll typically see a container of some sort and then you'll have a gas in there. So this is what we mean. We mean that gases will fill a container, meaning that volume or that space. It can be like a water bottle, a jar, whatever encloses those gas particles. Another big characteristic is that gases have great distance between particles, so they are less dense than liquids and gases, which makes sense. They're so far apart from each other that their density is much smaller or less than a liquid and a solid because they tend to shoot out and be into like this free matrix. They're all spread apart. And another visual you guys see is kind of like these marks showing that these gas particles are so fast and that they shoot out, right? So again, they're less dense than liquids and solids. So now let's go into the gas behavior. And a part of the gas behavior, or the model that helps us explain the behavior of gases, is the kinetic molecular theory of gases. So there's about 5 of them. We'll go into each one, and then we'll go into temperature, volume, and pressure. And all of these properties are so important before we even get into the mathematics. So I really want you guys to really digest this and really understand some of these definitions and the properties, because there are different scenarios where we can have a question being asked: what happens when this gas is under this pressure, this temperature, and vice versa? You have to know these properties. So let's start with number one. Gases consist of small particles that move randomly with rapid velocities. This causes gases to fill a container, like I talked about before. So gases move randomly. They're in this container and they just randomly just shoot around. Or even in our atmosphere, in an unclosed container. Well, we don't know if it's a closed container or not, but I'm not trying to promote conspiracy here. But even in our atmosphere, these gas particles, the nitrogen and the oxygen, argon, CO2, water vapor, all of these gas particles, even if you guys see in this background that I have here, they're completely random. They're just moving on, moving everywhere randomly and very rapidly, okay? Another thing about the kinetic molecular theory of gases, we have our second property, where attractive forces are neglected. Gas particles move far away and fill any size container. So for this, what we're saying is there's no attractive forces like we see in, like liquid with water, where they like to be together, right? I made a video last time talking about the properties of water and how they like to be together because of the attractive forces between the hydrogen and the oxygens. And, these water molecules kind of make a bond with each other and form this like water ladder. Same thing with solids, where they like to be together. There's an attractiveness. But with gases, they don't care about any of that. They're like, get away. I'm on my own path to be the best gas I can be, right? So there is no attractiveness there. They're just like high flying, just flying through a container, flying through our atmosphere. They are neglected. Attractive forces are neglected. They move far and fill any size container. So if we were to, for example, have a container here, and remember guys, I'll use container a lot during this video, and you guys will see that verbiage a lot in your chemistry course. If we have a container of gas particles, they're not going to be scrunched over here in this corner. That's no, like no. What you'll see more of is a container with gas where they are far apart. They do not want to attract. They hate each other. They are like, I'm on my own path. They go their own way. They do not hug each other at all. So they're not too friendly, these gas particles, okay? If we go on to our third one, this is a very important one. The actual volume occupied by gas molecules is extremely small compared with the volume that the gas occupies. Most of the volume is empty space, which allows the gas to be easily compressed. Wow, okay, what does this mean? This simply means that if we have a volume of a container, you guys are going to love this container word, right? And if we compare the volume of the gas versus the volume of the container, it'll be the same. These gas particles like to be far and spaced out together so much that the volume of the gas and the container will be the same. This is the reason we're able to compress gas, because the volumes are equal. So I don't know if you guys know about maybe, like a piston or something where we compress gas. Let's just say we're in a container. Oh, you guys are gonna love this container thing. And we have like this compressor that compresses gas. We're able to do that because the volume of the gas and the container are the same. Gases expand to, again, they are never in one area. They're all throughout filling that container, and we're able to compress gases in a container because of this. The volumes are equal for a gas and a container. If we move over to number 4, the average kinetic energy of gas molecules is proportional to the Kelvin temperature. Another fancy way of saying the greater the temperature, the faster, like we see our guy Sonic here. I don't know if we have any Sonic fans. The faster the particles move. Oop, and I think you guys saw a glimpse of what's next, right? Another thing to keep in mind is that when temperature is increased, pressure increases in a container. So you guys have your pot of rice. I love when my mom or my girlfriend cooks me the pot of rice. And of course you have some water in there. And as you heat it up, let's just say it's on a burner or something, as you increase the temperature, what happens? This water becomes a gas, and maybe it'll go through that little hole that you guys see when you guys cook. But nonetheless, you'll see, like, gas particles be released, or, water vapor, which is a gas. So with this, temperatures rise. So the particles within that pot, they begin to move faster, way faster. So the average kinetic energy increases. And we know that kinetic energy, I don't want to get too deep into this, but kinetic energy, think of movement. The movement of these particles increases, and so does the temperature. The temperature increases. I have a mountain here, one of the highest mountains, apparently, Google says. So the temperature increases, these particles move way, way faster, and pressure builds up. That's why you see sometimes the container pot might start jiggling and stuff. It's not having a seizure or anything or something crazy. What's happening is pressure is building up within that container. So increase in temperature, particles move faster. Increase in temperature, pressure gets faster. So this is the 4th property. So far we have that gases move randomly. They do not like being next to each other, right? That the volume of the container and the volume of the gases are the same. This allows things to become compressed. That's why gases are easily compressed. And then, of course, we have that the average kinetic energy of gas molecules is proportional to Kelvin temperature. And in other words, temperature increases the movement of particles. It can also increase the pressure within a container. So here's the example where I was talking about. If you guys see, I have like a little thing that connects. I try to be creative and make it cool for you guys. You guys see how spoiled you guys are? I mean, come on. Where we have this, my girlfriend or whoever was making this delicious water, they're boiling it up. And what we have is, if you guys can see here, we have gas being released because we increased the temperature. And what's happening with this increase in temperature is particles are moving way faster and they're being released into the atmosphere and moving around randomly and not being close to each other. Okay? Number 5, this is the last one. Another property is gas particles are in constant motion. They are moving rapidly in straight paths, which is something that I've said before, but I really want to highlight something here. When gas particles collide, they begin to travel in a new direction. Every time the wall is hit, gas pressure is exerted. Now, for this property, this applies to in a container. Yep, that good old container again, because what happens is these particles, they are moving in different directions, right? Remember, they're fast, they're moving all crazy. And what will happen is they hit the walls of a container. And then what happens is these particles will then change direction. They'll go somewhere else. And I don't know if this drawing is doing the justice, but let's look at this piece right here where we have, let's just say this particle, it hits this wall and now it's redirected somewhere else. And this happens to all of these particles, thousands, not even thousands, however many particles of gases are doing this. And every time it hits the wall of that container, gas pressure is exerted. Okay? So I hope this makes sense because it's in a container. The particle hits the wall, it exerts pressure. That's why a lot of things that are in a closed container and maybe it's heat is added or whatever the case, maybe there's pressure buildup, and they're like, oh, be careful, opening that can of soda or whatever the case may be, it might explode. There is pressure being exerted through the gases within that container, whether that be a water bottle, your stovetop cooker, whatever you guys use nowadays. Okay, so have anyone ever tried this? This is a perfect example where what I like to do is I would like twist up this bottle. I would like blow into it and get some CO2 in there. There's probably a little water left over, and if you twist it and you like take off the bottle cap for a bit, the bottle cap will explode because pressure is built up, and you can actually see like some water vapor or whatever just kind of leave the bottle. This is all because pressure is being built up within a container. Leave a comment for how many times I say container in this video. And that's just a perfect example of how pressure is built up. So now let's go into some of, these aren't characteristics, but these are things that I want to get out the way before we go into any of the equations, right? The PV equals nRT and the alphabet stuff that everyone hates. Pressure. So pressure is built up, and we talked about this before in the previous slides, but pressure is a buildup where gas particles hit the walls of a container and they exert pressure. So a perfect example of this again is, you guessed it, the container, where we have a container and we have gas particles. This is a way better schematic, I'll say, where we have gas particles and they hit the wall, exert pressure, exert pressure, exert pressure, and then it changes direction, and this exerts pressure, and that is what causes pressure when gas particles hit the wall of a container. And another important thing with pressure is that when temperature is increased, there's an increase in pressure. And we'll see this all mathematically, but for now, again, this is all conceptual. How about gases in the air? Well, there is a pressure that does exert on us, and this is called atmospheric pressure, or something called ATM. So yes, even the gases that are in our atmosphere are exerting pressure on us as well, and that is through atmospheric pressure. And sometimes in news stations, they talk about atmospheric pressure and things of that nature, okay? Next, we have volume, probably my favorite, because these are everyday things that I experience. Volume of a gas is equal to the volume of the container. So if we look up this example here, let's see, okay. Oh yeah, this is just to remember this. But volume is really anything that really just kind of takes up a space, right? So let's just look at a basketball, for instance. When we're pumping up that basketball, we're adding more gas to this basketball, thus increasing the volume. As to where if it was flat, the volume is much, much lower. So adding more gas means we're having particles hit the walls, right, of the inside of this ball, and this increases the volume and also would increase the pressure that's inside of this ball. If we look to our right, here's another example where temperature influences volume. And again, there are mathematical equations for this, so really think about this, guys. So you guys walk out and sometimes you see that your tire is, I wouldn't say flat, but this is flat, but some of us see it like this, where it's not flat, but it looks like it has low tire pressure. And the reason being is because there was a drop in temperature, and the drop in temperature reduces the speeds of gas hitting the walls of the tire. So there's less gases, again, exerting pressure because they're hitting the walls of a quote-unquote container or something that they're enclosed in. So there's less speed. These particles are not fast like how they usually are supposed to be, and not hitting the walls of the tire, thus lowering the volume. So I hope you guys kind of see this whole arrow system that I'm getting at, where everything is proportional to one another or inverse, where higher temperature equals lower this, or lower this equals higher that. Okay. Lastly, we have temperature. The temperature of a gas is related to the kinetic energy of its particle. And again, we talked about this in these last slides, where kinetic energy, just think movement, and the temperature of the gas influences the behavior of the particles. When we have our pot, increased temperature allows that water to turn into a gas, and these gas particles are moving crazy, very random. Okay? So we have here temperature. Increase in temperature equals increase kinetic energy, which equals more pressure exerted. That's in a container. All right. And then the last thing about is the amount of gas is usually measured in grams, which would be M. So this concludes this video. It was just an introduction to gases, its properties, really getting into what temperature is, the volume, and the pressure. So then we can go ahead and navigate some of the different practice problems that you guys will see using Boyle's law, Charles' law. If you guys enjoyed the video, just go ahead and leave a like, comment, subscribe. Again, I'll see you guys in the next lesson. So, peace.